Hi everyone, this is Tanya from Flying Dog Studio. Thank you so much for joining me for part 2 of my Beatrix Potter study. As you can see in the first video, I have already inked this in, and I will have that linked below, and we'll talk a little bit more about the videos in this series. First, I have the swatching card that I made in a previous video. I'll have that linked below. And these are my Derwent Graphitints that we're going to be using to color all of this in. And the brushes I have here are a size 3 round and a size 6 round, and this is from the Winsor & Newton Cotton series. I also have a microfiber cloth and a glass of water. Now you don't have to have microfiber cloth, just any kind of cloth will do. That just happens to be what I have on hand. As I am starting this, you can see I'm putting some water in the palette. The reason for that is because it makes it easier to transfer the color over. And I do that with Graphitint, I do that with watercolor. It conserves the product. Instead of getting water on my brush and going over to get product and then tapping it on the palette and then going back and getting water, instead I'm just putting it straight in the water and it goes ahead and spreads it out for me. You will notice above the little palette there, I will have the colors that we were using. I have Meadow Down, that was the yellow, and then we have Ocean Blue, and a little bit later I will be adding some Autumn Brown. But anytime I add new colors to the palette, I will have those on the screen for you so you can follow along. I am going to be getting just the base colors in this video. And if you have never worked with Graphitint before, you can take a look. I'll have linked below some of my Graphitint pieces that I've done previously where I explain some more of my process. But Graphitint is a little bit different than watercolor. It is like liquid graphite, is basically what the name says. That's what it is. So if I'm wanting to mix colors and just mix them ahead of time and put them on here, I can do that. Or I can put down a base coat, which is what I'm doing, let that dry completely, and then come back and put colors on top. So I can mix them to the side, which we're going to do some of that, or I can layer them to mix the colors. And that's what we're starting with on here. Now, the reason it's a little bit different than watercolor is that you do have to let this dry completely. With watercolor, if you put a color down and it's wet and you add another color on top, you can get that mixing right on the paper. It's a little bit harder with the Graphitint. If you come back to something that's dried just slightly with Graphitint, it will lift it completely off the paper and just really make a muddy mess. So you need to plan your colors ahead of time, and that's what I did with this piece. Again, this is a Beatrix Potter study, so I took this straight from a piece that she had done, one of her botanicals, and I'll have that linked down below. All my links will be below. If you need a reference for this, that's going to be below. If you want to know what my supplies are, that's going to be below. If you need extra videos, take a look down there. I'm going to have it all down below for you in the description. But you cannot put this on and then put colors on top when it's still wet. You can slightly blend them together, but you have to make sure everything's super wet to do that. It can't be slightly drying, because it pulls everything off the paper and, like I said, just makes a muddy mess. So I took a look at the colors on this, and there were a lot of yellow greens, and then there were some of the blue greens. So anywhere I'm seeing yellow green in her piece, I'm going to put the Meadow down, because that's basically the best yellow in this set. It's kind of hard to tell when you just look at those colors in the palette if you're not familiar with using it. And the little slip that they send with it, where they have, it's a piece of plastic and it has the colors on there where you can see what they look like if they were swatched out. That's actually pretty close to the swatching if you're going to swatch these colors out yourself. And I do recommend doing that if you've never used Graphitint before. Swatch the colors out so you know what they are and keep that handy. And I do recommend doing a swatching sheet to see how they mix together. I guess I should say a mixing card like you saw at the beginning to see how they mix together. So I'm going to keep on doing this and adding the layers on with the yellow, and then you're going to see me come back and put that ocean blue where we're going to have the blue green. And at the very top, these are honeysuckle. I didn't know that in the first video. If you've watched the inking, I couldn't remember what it was. And these are honeysuckle. I'm assuming these are honeysuckle from the UK because this looks different than our honeysuckle from the US. To me, it was a little bit different color, so it threw me off. I didn't recognize it as honeysuckle, but I love honeysuckle, so hers are really pretty. They have a pink tint to them, so you're going to see that I'm picking up the autumn brown, and I know you might think autumn brown, but autumn brown has a nice pink tint to it, so we're going to get that down as well. This is how I like to use the Graphitint. I like to layer it. Even if I am not adding a different color on top, for instance, the actual honeysuckle flowers themselves are just one color. At the ends of them, kind of going back into the flower, there's a little bit of yellow that goes to orange, but mainly they're pink. So in order to build that color up, I'm also an advocate of doing that slowly. So it's best to put a light coat on and then come back and gradually add more coats of color. If you put too much on and you make a mistake, it's kind of difficult to correct these things, so it's better to add a little bit at a time. Now, if you are following along with this and you want to see how I inked this, because there is a secret to Beatrix Potter's inking, and I go into that in the inking video. That's going to be linked below. YouTube has a new feature now, and it's called courses. So if you go to my channel and you take a look at the tabs across the top, you will see, if you keep scrolling toward the right, keep moving those over, you're going to see something that says courses. And if you click on that, it's going to bring up courses for Derwent Graphitint and watercolor and colored pencils, watercolor pencils, and inking. And you can go down through those courses and take a look. They will be little lessons like this, several parts, 2 to 3 parts, and you can go through those and follow along with us. Some things I will have a drawing for you on my blog, and I will have that listed below where you can trace it or whatever you want to do with it, but not on things like this that I don't own the picture. Since this is a Beatrix Potter, I'm not going to put my drawing of this up on my blog, but I will have drawings of my own work up there for you to print off or trace or whatever you want to do. And I will have one of my own pieces coming up pretty soon, and I'm going to be doing that, I think, in Caran d'Ache, so be looking out for that one. Now, as we continue on with this, we are getting up to the little blossoms themselves. So here comes that autumn brown, and you can see I put water down first, and then I put the paint on, and it looks brown there, but when we get up to the paper, it has more of a reddish color to it, especially once you add water and kind of spread it out. And that matches her art very well. You can see I put a little bit of yellow on the end of that coming in, and now some of that red is crossing over the top of that yellow, and that yellow is completely dry. There was a little bit of time drying. You didn't see that on here, but there was some time between the yellow and the blue and now as I'm putting the red on, and that allowed that to dry. You can see how it layers and gives us a nice blending effect there, going from yellow to orange to red. And we're going to continue to add this autumn brown through the rest of these blossoms. And there are some areas on here that I might not put paint, and that's because there's some sort of highlight there, so I want to indicate that. And some of the highlights are actually going to be in yellow, so some of the areas that I've added yellow, when I come back and put green on top, you're going to see that I leave some spaces and don't completely fill it in. Now, if you missed the inking part of this, you can see on the stem as it's coming down, I've not inked everything in completely. There are gaps, and this is what I was talking about in that video, if you've had a chance to watch it, is Miss Potter liked to leave spaces in between her lines. She didn't like to create a solid line through her entire piece, and you'll notice that some of my lines are weighted lines, meaning that they go from thick to thin. which is just a wonderful technique that allows you to create depth in a piece. And Miss Potter did that extremely well. So we are using that in our piece. Just a few more paint strokes here and checking stuff out, and then we will be finished with the base colors on this. I hope you'll join me for part 3. That will come out tomorrow. So if you are seeing this today, it is a Saturday, so that will come out on a Sunday. I have lots more of these courses coming up. I hope you'll join me for each of those. But until then, my friends, I will see you in the next one.